Alright guys, a simple, quick video that hopefully will save you some headache. 5 most common mistakes when setting up your new home studio. Let's get to it. Alright, I'm gonna keep this straight to the point, short and sweet. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments down below. And I'm pretty sure many of you already know these mistakes if you follow the channel, but it doesn't hurt to repeat them, and there's a lot of new people here on the channel. So let's start with mistake number 1. Not focusing on monitoring first. It's this simple. You can't mix what you can hear. And a lot of people, including myself, a life ago, when we start, we are drawn to hardware, analog, knobs, switches, lights. They're sexy. We like them and they make our job better, faster, and more enjoyable. But think about this. You won't be able to hear all the nuances, the differences between models, how to set the gear properly if your monitoring system is not up to par. I know it might not be as sexy as having all the gear and racks and all of that. At least not until you can afford big speakers or mains like mine or even bigger, but it doesn't matter. If your main goal is the quality of your mixes, of your products, monitoring is the first thing where you should decide to spend your money. And that of course also means your room and your treatment. But don't make the mistake of start buying a bunch of gear without a proper monitoring system, because you are gonna lose a lot of time. And you're also gonna form the wrong idea about the gear that you have, because you can't hear it properly. So you might think, well, this thing doesn't do what I thought it was doing, or my mixes are not any better because I bought these 2-3 pieces of gear. And most likely, if you didn't invest in the best monitoring system you can afford, that's why your mixes are not better. And of course, I'm not advocating you to go broke or go in debt to buy the ultimate sets of speakers and trying to buy the one pair that you will keep your entire life right at the beginning, because almost nobody did that. You are going to hopefully upgrade as you will upgrade the rest of your studio. But the point here is, when you have your first bag of money to invest in your studio, most of it, if not all of it, should go into your monitoring system. Mistake number 2, not building what I call your foundation gear first. And for the same reason as the previous point, we all tend to want to jump to the big badass 2-bus compressor or EQ or tube gear, whatever the heck it is, because they are sexy, because they have a wow factor, all right? But before going there, you need to build your foundation gear, your converters. If you're gonna go in and out of your DAW to use that amazing gear, you want good converters. Fortunately, nowadays, you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to have good converters. We live in an amazing time for that. There's plenty of multi-channel converters for anywhere between $2,000 or $3,000. They will give you many channels that you can use to go in and out for your hybrid mixing. Mastering, of course, they tend to be more expensive, but if mastering only is gonna be your field, that's where you wanna spend your money first. So you're monitoring and then your converters. Mistake number 3, paralysis by analysis, wanting to get the perfect chain. There's no such thing as the perfect chain or the chain that you can use for everything. That's one question I get so many times, like, what can I buy? I have like this amount of money. I want to buy something that I can use for tracking, mixing, mastering, repainting the walls, fix my car and make coffee. It can't happen. There's no such a thing as a perfect chain. Even if it doesn't matter how much money you throw at a chain and how comprehensive this chain is, you could have a compressor, an EQ, a saturator, a stereo image manipulation thing, whatever it is. There's no such a thing as a or the perfect chain. That's why mix engineers that mix hybrid have a lot of stuff, because we never know what is gonna work. And unless you're doing only one genre, I personally don't even know what genres I'm gonna work the next day. I just finished mastering a metal album and mixing 2 industrial EDM songs, and the next one is gonna be a hip-hop track. So of course we need versatility, because there's no such a thing as the perfect chain. But I see a lot of people, they go on for weeks or months or even years reading all the information they can possibly find about this machine versus that machine versus this other machine, and trying to build this silver bullet chain which is utopia. It doesn't exist. And of course, with experience, you will find that there are combinations or machines that work many times on the same things, like distressors on vocals, or my 542s on tubas, or a various combination of machines. But just to give you an example, but just to give you a reference point, either a chain or a machine doing a specific task or on a specific element, in the best case scenario, I'm happy if it works 6 mixes or masters out of 10. That's, I think, the best you can hope for. So if you can find a chain or a piece of gear that you use that much, you should be happy. There's almost nothing that works 10 times out of 10. And also pick your sources, because there's a lot of people online that talk about things they never touched. And we see this a lot with analog and people who maybe just heard files of a real distressor versus a plugin, or a real HG2 versus the plugin, or the files from the manufacturer of the plugins. And that's their only experience with the analog. And they talk about these units like they've been using them every day for the past 10 years in their day job. So pick your sources. Gathering information when you cannot try a piece of gear, it's great, and we are lucky to have so much information, but at the same time is a double-edged sword, because there's a lot of people out there that just talk just to talk, and they actually don't know what they're talking about. This is to say, in conclusion, if you have a budget for a chain, it's better to be as versatile as possible, as opposed to hyper focus and hyper target something specific that you think it's gonna work most of the time of all the time. Because again, hopefully you will time and chances to upgrade or expand your gear list. So don't put all the eggs in one basket, because if it doesn't work, or if you don't use it as much or as successfully as you think, you're stuck and you're gonna lose money. Mistake number 4, cheaping out on analog gear. I said this before, and of course, we all have to start somewhere. And I didn't build all this in one day, of course. But pay attention, because while these days we live in an amazing time, because we have great sounding units at a very affordable price, there's also a bunch of junk that is cheap. And a lot of people, they want a piece of analog so bad that they almost don't care what it is. And they would buy anything, the first thing that they can afford, just because it's a piece of real hardware. And I understand that. I did that myself, and that's why I'm giving you the advice. You're not gonna like it, you're gonna lose money, and it's gonna sit there and you're gonna be disappointed. So understand that there's bad in both extremes. There's some gear that is pretty overpriced, and it's not worth the money. And on the other end, there's gear that is cheap for a reason, because it just doesn't sound good and it's not worth the money. So understand that there is a threshold. For a unit to be good sounding, it has to have at least certain components of a certain quality. So there is a bottom ceiling below which is basically impossible to build something and put it on the market for that little money that is any good sounding. You're better off with plugins at that point, because plugins today sound great. So unless you have a decent budget for analog, don't even bother, because the super cheap stuff, it's useless. You're just gonna lose money. There are some exceptions, but you get my point. Mistake number 5, the latest is not always the greatest. Of course, we always welcome innovation. Things sound better and cost less, and that's great. And also, there have been improvement in classic designs that have been around for 50, 60 years, and now with a little tweak, with new modern technology, they can sound better. They have everything that the old units had, plus something more. But the latest is not always the greatest, and this is very true, especially with what I call prosumer gear. Right? Interfaces in particular. The companies that come out with a new model every 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, 1 year and a half, and the new model is magically 10 times better than the one before, with a new knob, with a new chip, with a new something, which it looks pretty much like the previous 5 they had out, versus the companies that come out with a model and they run with it for like a number of years, because the technology is solid, their design is solid, and they don't look and sound like money grabs. updating a new letter on whatever it is, or on the microphones or something like that. I mean, at the end of the day, we still use 1176s and A2As or 670s, which are 50, 60, almost 17 years old design. And this is it for this video. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, please consider using the super thanks. Leave a like, comment down below, let me know what you think are the most common mistakes when building a home studio. And if you really want to up your mix and mastering game, click the join button down here, become a MixBest TV member, access the already big and always growing library of full mixing courses start to finish, mastering courses on many different genres, and a lot more. The new EDM series is now available and many more to come. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up, man, take control.